Hi, everybody. I wanted to talk to you today about the Annotated Bibliography project. I know that many of us have been looking at it and working on it. I just wanted to add a video so that we could know exactly what we should be doing with this project. Um, so to begin with, for the Annotated Bibliography project, you have to start with a preliminary bibliography. Therefore, you're going to have your sources that you grabbed from EBSCO, that you have cited using the filters for scholarly peer-reviewed journals and the filter for full text options. You want to use these filters in EBSCO to make sure that you're only getting sources that will be approved, right? So when you do the preliminary bibliography, you want to make sure that you have those filters in place. I know that we talk about that in the preliminary bibliography module. But for the annotated bibliography, you're going to take 5 of the sources that you've already cleared through the preliminary bibliography, and you're going to take the articles from 5 of those sources, and you're going to summarize those articles. So that summary process includes a couple of things. So first of all, it includes a citation that you pull from the preliminary bibliography. The second thing it includes is going to be a summary of the article itself. To do that, you're going to not just look at the abstract, you're going to need the actual article. So if your article is 24 pages, you're going to need all 24 pages. If your article is 3 pages, you're going to need 3 pages. But you're going to need to go in and literally annotate that article. You need to find the main idea of the article. You need to find the major details that the author is communicating. A lot of times those major details are going to be under subheadings. During this process, oftentimes students kind of get caught up in I call it the minutia of the article, right? So they get really, really caught up in the methods that the author uses in order to conduct whatever experiment that leads them to whatever outcome the article is intended to produce, or the experiment is intended to produce. You don't need to do that. You don't need to read the methods necessarily. You don't need to get necessarily into the data analysis. You probably won't need to do a whole lot when it comes to looking at the formulas and things like that that the author uses. Mainly because unless you're intending to replicate this same experiment, the social experiment or this actual experiment, then you don't need those details. You do want to focus in on areas like the introduction, where they're introducing the experiment, maybe thinking about the participants and maybe their ages or their gender or where they're from in the world. That may give you some information that can lead to a satisfying summary thesis for your article's entry for the annotated bibliography. But you maybe want to pay more attention to the areas where they do a discussion, where they're talking about the experiment. That may lead you to some strong major details. You may also want to look at the conclusion or the results. That's going to also lead you to some strong major details about the article. So when you think about it that way, there's probably at least a strong amount of the article that you probably don't really need to read, or if you do read it, you don't need to read it with a fine-tooth comb. You maybe just need to have a general understanding of the article itself and how it works. So that's just in terms of reading and preparing for the annotated bibliography. Now, in terms of writing the annotated bibliography, the first thing you're going to need, like I said, is the entry. You'll hit a hard return or a couple of enter key depressions there. And then what you'll do is you'll get a couple of notches down, and then you'll go ahead and start writing your summary. To start your summary, you want to have an introductory statement. That introductory statement should include the author's name. It should include the title of the text. It should include the journal article where the text was published, and it should include the publication date. These details are going to be relevant to the person who reads your annotated bibliography, mainly because it takes a lot of the information that's in the entry itself and it summarizes it into a concise statement to give you a little bit of background on the article itself. The next thing that you'll want to add is maybe a context sentence. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the authors or a little bit about the project. And that will just create like a nice flow to lead into the next major part of the annotated bibliography, and that is the summary thesis. The summary thesis is the main idea of the entire article, right? So you need to have a summary thesis in order to be able to give a strong statement about what this article is really about, right? And so after that, then you're going to set up the major details. So you have a couple of ways you can do that. Either you can set up the major details in the order that the article announces them. So you can start with the first major detail the author gives, then the next, and then the next one after that, so forth and so on, until you get to the final major detail in the article. So to do that, you probably want to use some chronological order words or listing words where you say that this one is first, and then this idea was second, and then next, and afterwards, and so forth, all the way till you get down to the last one, which will very well maybe finally. So that's one way to set up your major details, right? Another way you can set up your major details is by using addition transition words. So those addition transition words will be words that simply list the fact that these ideas are in the article, right? So it would just be maybe giving, the author talks about this one idea, and then it talks about another idea, and then another idea. But you don't necessarily need to put them in the same order of the original article, because the article may present major details that have nothing to do with your right for a cause topic. And if so, then you don't necessarily need those details in there if they're not really relevant. So if you do it this way and just list that these ideas are in the article as opposed to saying that they came first or second or third, that's completely okay. All right. At the end of your summary thesis, you want to give information about, at the end of your summary for your annotated bibliography, you want to give a conclusion statement. And that conclusion statement is going to basically give you information about how the article ends, right? So it could be the conclusion, it could be the conclusion that the authors noted at the end of the experiment. It could be called the results. It could be a variety of things, but usually the terms conclusion, conclusions, or results will give you some idea of where that conclusion statement can be found. If it doesn't give you a subheading to indicate exactly where that is, then just take maybe the final paragraph or two and try to make sure that you can summarize it in a concise way, and that will serve as your summary thesis. You put all of this together and double check for, capitalization, punctuation. You want to make sure that you are looking for those et als, which is et.al. That just means other researchers. You shouldn't have any of that in your summary for your annotated bibliography. It's completely fine in the entry itself next to the author's name, but it should not be in the summary part of it. You want to double check for things like subject verb agreement. You want to look for the fact that you've used transition words and that those transition words make sense to the different components of the paragraph. I have some things posted inside the module for you to look at in terms of being able to revise your own work based on the sample and information inside the course module. I hope this has been helpful. As always, please let me know if you need any help with this assignment, and good luck.